operating things.
I see us. We're good.
We're good.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Byron,
Joe,
how are you, baby?
I'm good. Got a lot going on. I'm in a glass case of emotion. You know,
we're gonna talk through it, man. We're gonna get you through it.
should I
We're
call
gonna
you
talk it
Dr.
out.
Joe? Dr.
You
Nice.
can. I'm just here to listen. I'm a sounding board. Just let it all out tonight, big guy.
Aye. We all knew it was coming at some point, but when it happens, it just hits different. So it's been a rough few hours, but we've got the magic liquids of Alexa and love and prosperity going on. So we're okay.
Well, I appreciate you being with us, Byron. Welcome into the Turn Golf Podcast. Appreciate all you guys joining. Appreciate Byron hopping on with us tonight. AP is off somewhere, probably writing like a legal brief on this live court situation. So shout out AP. No, AP actually got called into work tonight, so we appreciate Byron hopping in. Good friend of ours, colleague over at Rotoballer. And we advise you guys to check out rotoballer.com. You can find Byron's article over there, Breaking 100. Just added this year. It's been a huge success. You're doing so well with that, man. Another winner, Tom Kim, last week at the Wyndham, and I think that's 4, Byron, in like 21 columns. Is that right? Since you started over at Rotoballer, that's your 4th outright win, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So how does it feel, man? Tell us a little bit about how you came along, Tom Kim, last week, and give us your thoughts on the Wyndham kind of as a whole.
Yeah, Tom Kim was one of those guys that we bet on that just showed up. Didn't have, obviously too much track record to go for from a statistical standpoint. So it was more of a gut feel, kind of a, wow, this guy's just hit the tour running. And I saw what he did. He broke or tied the course record at the 3M on Sunday. And that was off the merits of his approach play, which, I'm a big fan of, guys that can hit the irons really well. I mean, that's just, number one predictor of success on tour. And turns out we didn't really need that. We just needed him to gain 12 and a half strokes putting over 4 days.
Which always helps.
So I'm not gonna say it went according to plan, but there was a definite method behind why we bet him, and his accuracy off the tee is crazy. It's nuts.
Yeah.
He's so accurate off the tee, which I think played a big role in his success. It allowed him to make all those birdie putts versus par putts.
Yeah. Well, it feels sustainable with him, right? Because of the iron play, and because of the really good overall driving, but specifically the iron play, as you mentioned. So, doesn't really feel like a flash in the pan thing, right? Like we've seen some of these guys pop on, win early, and you kind of never hear from them again. This feels real with him, I think, right?
Yeah, and he's missed one cut, I think, in the last 7 or 8. And the rest of them have all been like top 30s, most of them top 20s, so the guy's just been dialed. He's just been a model of consistency. The ball striking's been there the whole time, and that's what was needed at the Wyndham. And it turns out, you get a lucky putter, it works out. But he was some of those 3 irons he hit on the back 9 were just insane, just so good in the right spot, and just kept doing it from the fairway all the time. He hit 1 or 2 bad drives, but everything else was so calm under pressure. Everything you love to see from a guy that's in contention. He could have easily pissed that away. That's what a lot of people have done, better people than him. And he did well.
And he was on 59 watch Sunday, which is nuts. Kind of right when he's in the thick of things. So, and maybe the most impressive thing, I don't think we brought it up. Maybe the most impressive thing of the week, he opened the tournament with an 8 with a quad. So regrouped, showed a ton of mental toughness there. So just very impressive all the way around, man. Big win for him and a big win for you, Byron. As I mentioned, you can catch Byron's article out at rotoballer.com every single week. So we encourage you to go over there. You can check out my written content. Great contributors like Spencer Aguiar, Josh Bennett, Rob G does a pivots article over there that's really fun. So we encourage you to go over there, especially over the next few weeks as we're stopping, kind of hopping into the FedEx Cup playoffs, which we're going to dive into momentarily. The FedEx St. Jude Championship, the first event of the FedEx Cup playoffs. We're in Memphis this week, Byron. AP and we're on Tennessee time in our home state. And I really like this event. Very successful week last year for me in this event. Really good. Playing at TPC Southwind in Memphis. This golf course is a par 70, 7,233 yards, so a pretty lengthy par 70. And normally plays pretty tough. This is not a birdie fest, kind of like we've seen over the last few weeks at the Wyndham, Rocket Mortgage, 3M. This is a little bit different golf course and a very different field than we've seen really since the Open Championship. Bermuda greens this week. I think it's really important to hit fairways. Really important to have some good iron play, which we know is always important, but that's especially the case here because so many water hazards and so much trouble kind of lurking out there. Give me any thoughts on the golf course, Byron, and kind of any statistics that you're targeting this week.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered the iron play aspect of it. This is the most I ramp my model up. I'm like sitting at 45% total approach play this week, which is about almost half of what I throw in there. And it makes a lot of sense because if you look at who has succeeded at this venue, it's guys that can absolutely just keep it. I think a lot of the approach play has to deal with water, and if you're coming from this Bermuda rough can really, really cause some issues and headaches for you. And if you're not driving in that fairway, we saw what the repercussions were last week. If you're missing a fairway at a course that is, I think you can draw some similar comps to Sedgefield from last week with the tee to green game aspect of it. I think the greens will be a little easier this week, so there will be some guys like Russell Henley that can maybe show up a little bit better than last week. But the main thing I'm really looking for is approach play from 125 to 200 yards. There's 2/3 of shots will come from that proximity range this week, according to the last 4 events that have happened at this golf course. And, there's some obviously really good players from that range, which we'll definitely have an eye on and talk about today. So that's pretty much the main thing I'm looking for this week.
Yeah, I agree, man. I love that angle. I'm kind of personally leaning on good drives gained this week. I feel like you really have to drive the golf ball well. If you're not finding fairways on this golf course, it's going to be really tough. And that's why we do see some kind of ugly scores on this par 70, 7,200 yard golf course. I know there's the Cam Smith stuff, man. You touched on it in your show earlier. If you're not familiar with Byron's Breaking or Back Nine Bets podcast, Breaking 100 Back Nine Bets, a lot of B's, man. If you're not familiar with Byron's Back Nine Bets podcast, definitely go to his Twitter account and check that out. Some really fun stuff tonight, some emotional stuff, and we're going to get into it as we dive into the slate, man. So if you're ready, Byron, let's just jump right in. We'll kind of hit those things as we move through the salary scale.
Sounds good to me, buddy. I'm lucky I got that vent off my chest earlier, so we'll keep it PG for this one.
Well, hey, we're keeping the microphone is always open. Blow off any steam you need to. Let's dive into the top of the DraftKings salary scale. Cam Smith is in the field this week. He's priced at 10.5, and several other players priced above 10K. John Rahm right at 10, JT at 10.2, Patrick Cantley playing well at 10.3. The aforementioned Cam Smith there at 10.5. A lot of publicity for him today. Xander Schauffele at 10.6, Scotty Scheffler at 10.8, and Rory McIlroy at 11K. This field is obviously stacked, and the top of the salary scale reflects that. A bunch of guys priced above 10K this week, Byron. Kind of give me an overall 30,000-foot view of what you're seeing at the top, And then if you want to zoom in on maybe your favorite play, maybe a guy that you're looking to fade up here.
Yeah. So right off the bat, let's go ahead, and there's going to be 4 guys I'm probably not going to be playing that much this week out of the 7.
Okay.
One of them is going to be Cam Smith because of all the stuff that's happened, but we'll get there in 2 seconds. The other 3 guys are Patrick Cantley, John Rahm, and Xander Schauffele. They are all below elite level approach play from 125 to 200. I know, there's other elements of their game, but all the other guys that are in the mix at the top here have similar off the tee games as, Xander and Patrick. They can putt about as good as them too, but the proximity numbers from 125 to 200 are a big issue for me. And Xander is one of the biggest notable guys where his course history is not that amazing at this venue. And it kind of makes sense because he's over the last 24 rounds from 125 to 200, he's 90th in this field. And over the last 2 years, he's 59th from 125 to 200, which is an interesting thing. He's very, very good at golf. But I think if you're going to bet a guy week in, week out, if you have statistics like this that really just show that he's, suboptimal from that range over the long period of time, I think it'll pay off to fade him in a situation like this. If the ownership, gets way low on him, might jump in, but I'm out on those 4 guys, particularly because of the proximity numbers.
Okay. So you're in on who? Tell me who are you in on up here?
So I guess, Rory, Scotty, and JT, I would say. Okay. But also the JT injury thing is a bit of a, like what's going on there? Was it a European, was he not in his element over, across the pond? Is he going to be better now? It's been a while since he played last. So I'm assuming he's probably better by now, but also his ownership's way up there. So I guess if I were to pick 2 guys, it's Rory and Scotty. I think I'm liking those 2 guys the most out of the 7.
Yeah, Scotty Scheffler's my favorite up here. It feels like he's kind of moved back in the DFS consciousness maybe a little bit, maybe the betting consciousness a little bit too. I think there's some good numbers out there on him earlier in the week at least. Hadn't had a chance to look in the last couple of hours. But he's had top 15s in his last 2 trips to Memphis in this event. The ball striking numbers have remained great, consistently good. The putter just hadn't cooperated quite as much as it was earlier in the year when he was racking those wins up. But going back to Bermuda greens this week, Byron, which historically has been his best surface, I really like Scotty Scheffler's chances this week. Rory, there's some question marks coming off that tough Open Championship, man. You kind of wonder, there's been a little bit of a layoff there. You can say that for several of these guys this week that hadn't teed it up since the Open. But you kind of wonder where Rory is. We have seen him historically play really well down the stretch during the FedEx Cup playoffs. So, and he's played well at this golf course. So tough to argue with Rory. Scotty's my favorite up here. Xander graded out really well for me, just kind of in my early week basic type of model. So, he's worth a look. Before the Open, we were talking about him as the hottest player in the world. Won the Travelers, won the Scottish, played really well there for a stretch, and just hadn't teed it up. So, we don't really know what we're getting with Xander, but going into the Open, he was extremely hot. Cam Smith, I know a player that you really like, and I'll open the floor to you if you want to talk about this live stuff with him. But we know he's an explosive player. Played really well at this golf course last year. Had a top 5. Said in his press conference today, this golf course really suits his eye well. So with all due respect, you have to like Cam, and then Cantley. This is kind of the spot, man. I don't like Patrick Cantley in majors. Don't really love him in Birdie Fest. So this, just from a narrative perspective for me, just feels like a really sensible spot for Patrick Cantley, a guy that's been really, really solid. Hadn't won yet this year, but seems on the verge with kind of his recent play. So elite guys, probably not a bad option up here. But we'll move into the 9s unless there's something you want to add about Cam.
Yeah, I mean, Cam is number 1 in my model. And it's not, I don't mess with the numbers or anything like that. He's so primed for this golf course. And particularly after what we saw over in Europe, where he got that new driver. I think I interacted with some guy on tour that mentioned that he got feedback from Cam on the driver, and the fact that it's more forgiving allows him to he's hitting a cut off the tee now versus a draw, which I think's completely changed the whole dynamic. In his presser, before he got asked about the live stuff, said that he's feeling the most confident in his driver he's ever felt before. And he's typically felt really comfortable on this golf course off the tee. So now you've got those two dynamics merging together. I bet him outright. I was going to play him a bunch in DFS. If we're still looking at this thing from an objective perspective, he is really suited for this golf course, especially with his driver being one of his biggest weaknesses, kind of looking like it's trending in the right direction. His approach play is fantastic, as always. Makes the most birdies on tour, putts lights out, likes this golf course. He's 10-5. There's a lot of guys more expensive than him. But, what's the support? I mean, I know he beat Rory in Scotland, so he doesn't really give a crap about who's cheering for him and who's not.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to make money and you're not letting emotions get in the way, I think he's still a great play. But, man, it's just like, what's going to happen? There's so much stuff going on around him. Very disappointing. The PGA Tour is losing the world number 2 golfer in the world.
Yeah.
No. I mean, it's not certain, but I mean, it's 99%, right?
It did not look good today in the press conference. Did not look good. I mean, if you're going to, why not just kill it? If you're not going, why not just shoot it down and kill it, as you're getting ready to head into the FedEx Cup playoffs today. So, yeah, it doesn't look good. I agree. We messaged a little bit earlier today, back and forth, that it just sucks, man. It just sucks that, guys got every right in the world to make as much money as they can. In comparison to other sports, golfers are way underpaid. Even though they're still making ridiculous money, that is the case when you look at some of these contracts in other sports. So, don't begrudge these guys making the money they can, but from a fan perspective, it sucks, man. It's splitting everything up, watering everything down on both sides. I just don't ever really see myself caring about a live event. But as these great players start jumping, what's going to be left on the PGA Tour. So that's kind of a discussion for another day. We could have at length, but we'll jump back in the salary scale. My feelings on Cam, man. I have concerns about the driver. I do know it is heading the right direction. Obviously, won the Open Championship, but that's a golf course where he had a lot of room to operate off the tee. My concern with him is always the driver. And this is a golf course where you do have to hit fairways. So, maybe if some people are on the fence about Cam, I think that maybe kind of gives you a perspective from both sides. The way kind of we're split on him a little bit this week, Byron. He's an explosive player. So, I never would begrudge anybody rostering Cam. But let's move into the nines. A really deep 9K range, a lot of quality players, and we'll see that it's a recurring theme throughout this salary scale. Very deep field, one of the better ones we'll see and have seen all year. Matt Fitzpatrick, defending U.S. Open champion, kind of leads off the 9K range there at 9,800. Tony Finau coming in off back-to-back wins in his last 2 starts, playing well at 97. Will Zalatoris, Cameron Young, a couple of young players that I think we all love. Jordan Spieth, the vet, been quiet as of late, and Victor Hovland, who made a very nice run in the Open Championship. Kind of a lot to unpack here. Got some guys in great form, some guys that have been kind of quiet. Give me your thoughts on the 9K range, Byron.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and my eyes jump immediately to Victor Hovland, who is – I'm just going to be, harping on this 125 to 200 yard, because you don't get a lot of courses that have approach weigh that heavily on success at a course. And I know you're a big course history guy, your articles, Horse for the Course. And I think if you look at this course history,
I'm surprised that Victor's course history isn't better.
Yeah, I know. And I think it's very, very weird how he's got that major around the green deficiency in his game, which I think is just really just sucking all the air out of the room for him. He's not allowing him to build any momentum. He has to make a lot of putts if he's wanting to, avoid bogeys and stuff when he misses the green. But if you're looking to bet a guy that's got incredible upside and his irons are on fire this week, he is second and third over long term and short term in this field from 125 to 200. So he's also one of the better drivers on tour when it comes to accuracy and distance. So he's going to be in the fairway a lot, which makes a big difference here. We saw that he was doing better, at the Open. I don't know if you can really glom onto that kind of success that much. And he's a really good putter in general. But if he's missing a lot of greens, he's going to be in trouble this week. So he's got a lot of risk. But if he hits a lot of greens, he's going to be in good shape. But this course doesn't really predict that you're going to be doing it that much. But he's also 9K, and we know that this guy can do well, and he's a really good ball striker, and that's what this course requires. So hopefully, I'm okay going there a little bit, especially if there's like a Sam Burns that's in that just 2 spots below him. That's almost like triple the ownership of what Victor's.
It brings up a kind of talking about Victor there brings up an interesting aspect that we hadn't really touched on much yet, and that's bogey avoidance. And the ability to kind of scramble around the green and make pars. An underlying common thread when you look back at former winners of this event, they've been really good around the green, really good at bogey avoidance. This is a tricky golf course. These greens are small. So, maybe that kind of circles back around to why Victor hadn't had much success here. He's just not successful getting the ball up and down when he misses a green. But you do love the ball striking. You love the tee to green ability. And this course feels like a really nice fit for a guy like Victor. So, certainly as a GPP option, I don't think there'll be much ownership at all there this week. So it's definitely worth a look. Anyone else in the 9K range that's kind of sticking out to you? There's a couple guys that I really like this week. Anyone outside of Victor sticking out for you there?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of both Tony and Willie Z. Obviously, they're very popular players this week. I think they're going to be sought after by a lot of DFS players. And Tony's looking like he's going to be one of the better owned guys this week, which I think you can jump to Willie if you're looking for a very similar product of a player. But it's just what's Willie gonna do on the greens again? I think he putted well here last year, which I think is good. You like to see that, and he's been playing fantastic golf. I think he's just frustrated. I think he's seeing all these people around him, like Tom Kim coming in and just winning this thing, and all of a sudden making himself into the FedEx Cup playoffs before Willie even did it last year. I think that's a little bit of salt in the wound for him. So he could come out here just ready to go. Got a new caddy. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, parted ways with his caddy mid-tournament last week, which is very unusual. We rarely see that mid-tournament. So, there's obviously some things going on there. Whether that turns out to be a good or bad thing, I don't know. I do really like him in this spot. We've talked about a lot on this show in the past that Zalatoris is kind of an outlier, man, by the fact that he's really kind of hurt by the golf courses that the PGA Tour plays on. He's not normally going to go out and win them and shoot a 26 or 28 under, go to a Rocket Mortgage or 3M and do that. It's just not his game. He's better suited for these more challenging tests. The golf courses that really, test your abilities from tee to green. And we know he's one of the best in the world in that aspect. So I really like Willie Z this week. Feels like he's fired up. It feels like a win's coming. We keep saying that, but, I do think it'll come at a golf course like this. That's a tougher test. So at 9,500, really like Willie Z. My other highlight here in the 9K range is Matt Fitzpatrick. A guy that even though he's a U.S. Open champion, kind of feels like he's maybe slipped out of mind just a bit. But great course history here. 2 top 6 finishes in his last 3 starts on this golf course, Byron. He's added that distance, but maintained a really nice level of accuracy. 18th in good drives gained in this field over the last 24 rounds. This golf course suits his game really well, and along with Willie Z, he's my favorite play in the 9K range. Any thoughts on Fitzy?
Yeah, he's 11th in good drives gained for my model, so that's even for the last 2 years, right? And I don't know if that's obviously lost a bit of importance since he's picked up some distance. You're going to lose some accuracy, but Fitz is one of the worst guys from the 125 to 200 range, which is a little baby concern, but the course history is fine. That kind of offsets that concern for me, and I'm totally okay playing him, especially if he's around that Tony Finau range, because I think everyone's going to be going to Tony. I think Fitzy's a little bit of a sneaky play. He's the freaking U.S. Open champion, people.
Yeah,
what are we doing?
And it's played well since. So there's a lot to like for me there. I mean, you can make the argument that he's so close to the tippy top tier guys that you could maybe just bump on up. But I really like Fitzy on this course with a sub 10K price tag with the form, the fit, and the course history. Just really quickly on Cam Young, any thoughts there? Has played really well. He's kind of in that Willie Z zone where he seems to be perpetual runner up. But we saw a great performance at the Open. Follow that up with a really great performance in Detroit, right? So any thoughts on Cam Young? We know he has the skills from tee to green, though it feels like he's a little bit more reliant just on pure power off the tee, which I don't know how far that'll get him here, because you do need to be in the fairway. But any thoughts on Cam Young really quickly before we move to the 8K range?
Yeah, so I'm going to compare Cam Young to Rory McIlroy. I think his accuracy is very good for a guy that hits it as far as he does. And if you look at Rory, I looked at his stats at Southwind, and he's averaged, I think over the last 12 rounds or 10 rounds, he's averaged over a stroke off the tee at this venue. So, we've got this big idea of keeping it accurate, but there's certain guys that have just extreme length that can still hit it way down there. And if you're hitting a wedge compared to a 7-iron out of this Bermuda rough, I think you're still okay. And I think both of these, Rory and Cam Young, can do that. And we've seen Cam succeed at Harbour Town. We've seen him succeed everywhere. So never count him out, especially if he's going to be kind of, a forgotten son. So I'm a big fan of Cam. And then Jordan Spieth as well, I think is going to be I think he's going to be one of the lowest owned guys going into this event. And his putting has been very bad, but it's trending in the right way. So I don't want to ever mess with a Jordan Spieth that's high owned with a crappy putter, but I'll take a gamble on him when the putter might be looking to be okay at low ownership. So that's kind of my vibe in the 9K range. Yeah.
Well, you never have to talk me into Jordan Spieth. Like you said, I think he'll probably be the lowest owned guy in the 9K range. I mean, we might catch him at sub 10% ownership.
Yeah.
So
Jordan Spieth at sub 10, and his putting has been better. So it's not like it's bad.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Let's talk about some guys in the 8K range. Feels like a kind of an obvious buy low spot on Colin Morikawa, though it's tough, man. Even with that finish at the Masters, even with that finish at the U.S. Open, it just feels like he's been fighting a little bit this year to me. But at 8,700 and with the odds, you can bet him outright. Tough to ignore Colin there on a golf course that feels like it's suited perfectly for his game. Sam Burns is one of those guys we mentioned when you talk about a Cam Young or Rory McIlroy, a guy that hits it really, really far and can hit it really accurately at times. Lost in a playoff on this course last year. We know his track record on Bermuda greens. Sung J M coming off a very nice performance at the Wyndham, a runner-up. Hideki was in that playoff last year as well with Sam Burns and Abe Answer. Shane Lowry had a strong year all around. Billy Horschel, tremendous course history. Then we got Joaquin Neiman and your guy, Tom Kim, rounding out the 8K range. A lot of interesting plays here, Byron. quality players. This feels very deep. So, I mean, I wouldn't blame anybody just for wanting to camp out in the 8Ks this week, right?
Yeah. And it's funny, I've got this little ownership color graph and next to the guys' names, and you scroll from that 9K range, and all of a sudden you got this thick chunk of red, which is, high ownership. And it makes sense because these guys are all very good players that can absolutely win this freaking golf tournament. And they're sitting in, there's not even 8-9 guy, right? I think Colin Morikawa is the top of the range at 87. So when the moment Sam Burns came out at 86, it was just like, what are we doing? Why is he even in that range? And he's going to be pushing 30%. And I don't know if I can get on board with that at all.
Yeah.
But I'm totally cool jumping either side of him, going to Colin and Sungjae, who have shown, and Colin's irons have been really good, actually. I don't think a lot of people, he's one of the best iron players in the world, and I'm going to harp on it the whole time. I'm totally cool taking my chances with the guy's short game. If you got tee to green elite level prowess, Colin, Victor, those boys, Sungjae.
Yeah. Yeah, they can hit it so good that they're rarely scrambling. They're rarely forced to chip. When they're hitting it, as well as they're capable of hitting it.
Yeah, and these guys are professional golfers. They can putt lights out every now and then too. So you're taking a gamble on them, and that's why you're not. If you want to ditch Sam Burns, that's okay. And obviously, Sam Burns is a fantastic play here because the course history and his putting on Bermuda is just unbelievable. It's so good. But if you really want to get frisky, you can go either side of them, and then Tom Kim, obviously. I think I saw a quote of him saying that I enjoy something about I enjoy not taking time off. Like, that's how much I love golf. So he's 20 years old. I remember playing golf in the holidays every day, 36 holes. I was 16, he's 20, whatever. It's like, he can do it. I'm not worried about burnout, fatigue. I'm more worried about the lack of preparation he might have, going into this week after winning. But whatever, ride that train. I think the guy's just trending. He's looking good. Everything about his game suits this golf course. If he never won last week, I would love him here. So let's go again. I've got him for another outright again this week.
Yeah, you and I, in messages earlier today, we're talking about that, and I agree with you, man. I really like the idea of just going right back to him here at 8K. I don't know that many folks will. It's kind of one of those things where it feels like if he finished T3 last week, like everybody would be on, but because he won, it kind of scares people off. So from a GPP perspective, keep an eye on that ownership. Won't hesitate to just jump right back on Thomas the Train. Love his attitude, love his game. As you mentioned, he's a grinder. Just like fellow South Korean Sungjae Im there at 8,500, a guy that played really well last week. We know that he can get hot. Billy Horschel, a guy I rarely roster, but someone I'm pretty interested in this week just because the course history is so good. You got any thoughts on Billy Ho? Have you looked at him at all this week?
Yes, and I think this is the perfect situation for the listeners. If you're a course history guy, listen to Joe. If you're a guy that you think his stats in general, long-term, short-term, all of that, I'm looking at Billy's approach play over the last 2 years, the last 24 rounds, the last 12 rounds, and nothing cracks the top 75 on approach. So you gambling on that, and I know these professional. I know we all go to golf courses that suit our eye better, and I understand that. And his course history is fantastic, but from a approach play angle, it's not looking good at all for him. But I've got him 14th in the model for course history, so he's definitely up there. Great short game, very accurate off the tee. Maybe that helps, the approach side of things. It's kind of like letting the dominoes fall down a little bit. But I'm totally cool just going to Tom Kim instead. If Billy's going to be 13 and Tom's 16, I'm cool going to Tom for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is a course history play. 5 top 10s and 11 career starts on this golf course. You can make the argument a lot of those were were against much softer fields back when this event was just kind of a regular PGA Tour event. This event used to be the week before the U.S. Open, I believe, pretty much annually. And then we saw it shift to WGC the last couple of years, and now the first leg of the playoffs. So you can kind of make the argument some of those finishes were against lesser talent, but top 25s and top 25s in each of his last two starts. I'm not a Billy Horschel defender or guy by any means. Just throwing out the course history there, and he is a streaky, unpredictable player. I mean, huge win at the Memorial earlier this year. That came on the heels of a miscut at Colonial the previous week, a golf course where he, on paper should have played really well. Missed a cut there, lost 2 strokes, I think, tee to green, and goes and wins the Memorial. So that's just Billy Horschel in a nutshell. He's always a GPP only type of play for me. I think we can agree there's a lot of interesting options there in the 8K range this week, Byron, and we can say that about the 7Ks as well, man. Kind of shows the true depth of this field, the quality of player that we can roster here in the 7Ks, and that leads off with guys like Max Homa, Trail Hatton, Russell Henley. Very high quality players. Cory Connors pops out at 7,600. A guy that's kind of been out of sight, out of mind. We hadn't really talked much about lately. Mino Pereira down there at 7,500. You got some course history plays. Keith Mitchell, who's a Tennessee boy there at 7,400. Webb Simpson from the Southeast, familiar with this type of golf, has played really well on this course. But coming off a brutal miscut where he's a course history beast at Sedgefield. So some question marks surrounding Webb. But quality plays available all throughout the 7s. Highlight a couple for me, man. Who's standing out for you in this price range?
Yeah. So real quick, I played 25% Webb at Sedgefield at 10K or whatever he was. He's now going to be a fifth of the ownership at 73K at a course that he's played pretty well at. He's got not probably as good a course history, but he's got very good course history too. So if you're a big course history guy and you're looking, I mean, you have to play like just a few Webbs and you're like looking good. But if there's guys that I really like, it's Russell Henley. His iron play is starting to do that thing that Russell Henley does before he starts getting into that disappointing Russell Henley couldn't finish situation.
Nuclear mode.
Yeah. Him and Tom Hoge over the last two events /8 rounds are the 2 best guys in this field. And that includes all the players in the field, right? So you got Colin, JT, Cam, all those boys, and Tom and Russell are out there just showing them up. So if you're looking to lean on approach, Russell is definitely that guy. I love him. He's cheap. Going to be a little spendy on the ownership side, but I'm okay with it. If you're going to get frisky somewhere else, I love Russell Henley. He's very, very good, and his best surface, I think, is Bermuda. He really likes to putt on Bermuda grass. Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned Cory Connors, which I love. His putting has got very, very much improved over the last little while, and he's still a ball striking god. And then I'll just mention Seamus Power, who I always seem to mention on this show. And when it comes to playing in big events, when it comes to playing difficult golf courses, I think Seamus is I always want him on my card. I always want him in my player pool. Yeah. He's so good at avoiding. He's second in this field in bogey avoidance over the last 2 years.
Yeah, and it's played well here. Only a couple starts at TPC Southwind, but a T27 and a T12, 68.8 scoring average. So a lot to like about Seamus there. That's
not even this year's Seamus either. We got a Seamus that just made 3 out of 4 major cuts, finished inside the top 20 and top 10 in 2 of those events. The guy's a baller. And when it comes to the big events, he shows. And when I think, he does well on these difficult golf. He's like a poor man's version of Matty Fitz, I would say, before Matty Fitz won the US Open and gained a ton of muscles and testosterone injector braces and stuff. But, we're not going to get into that hypothetical. But, and then Mito from a long-term perspective of statistics, I think he really fits his golf course really nicely too. He played pretty crappy leading up into the Open, but we've had a month off. And, I'm totally okay taking a chance on a guy that's played poorly for a long period of time or just a short. Let me repeat that quickly. When you've played well over a long period of time and then had a really brief period of poor play, like the 6 missed cuts, and then have a break, I'm cool going back to that guy after a month off. Because I feel like you've just figured your stuff out again. You took the time off. When I go camping for a week, I come back, I'm revitalized. Let's go. I love his baseline. I'm not worried about Mito. Let's do it. And then Keegan Bradley as well. I'm always going to mention him. He's just too good of a ball striker to not bring up, especially with his putting not being bad anymore. So those are guys I like.
Okay. Yeah, I like the angle on Mito. As you mentioned, great long-term form. Kind of fell off a cliff a little bit lately. So he, as you said, Byron, he's a guy where, you kind of like seeing that lengthy break after the Open. And all of these guys, man, they're getting geared up for these FedEx Cup playoffs. There's a lot of money at stake. Reaching that tour championship, that top 30 means a ton to these guys going forward. A lot of incentives come with that. So these guys are working with their coaches. They've been working on their game. So, you could definitely see a guy like Mito who's played well for the majority of the year, but hit a little rough patch. You could definitely see him kind of putting the train back on the tracks this week. Cory Connors, I'll just toss it out there. It's pretty obvious. It kind of feels like he's, as you mentioned with Russell Henley, it kind of feels like he's hitting that gear right now. Had a tremendous ball striking week last week. Chris Kirk is a guy that I've leaned on heavily throughout the year. A little bit of a dip there, kind of during that Open Championship swing at the Scottish and the Open. But he's a guy that I'll buy on this golf course. I like the fit there. Saath Tagala, we know how explosive he can be. And JT Poston is just one of those guys that's on a heater right now. So there's really a lot of ways you can go in the 7K range. Down at the very bottom, there's even some guys I don't mind taking a look at. Ches Reavie is not a guy that we're going to play every week on every golf course. He's very, very short off the tee, but he is very accurate, and that's led to good results at this golf course. He's only a few weeks removed from a win. It was an opposite field event, but a win nonetheless. So I think you can look at Ches Reavie here. Had a really good final round last week. Scott Stallings, Tennessee boy who's been on fire, honestly. If we're talking about iron play, AP and I talked about it a lot on here. He's good buddies with Scott, and when he's hitting it well, man, and he's confident, this dude can just hit it super close consistently. So really like Scott Stallings there at 7,100 if you want to buy in on some upside at a very discounted rate. Denny McCarthy, it's kind of an interesting bounce back spot.
Yeah.
The chalk of all chalk, it felt like last week, and just completely busted at Sedgefield when a lot of people were on him. I don't know that the fit's great, but he's a good scrambler and an excellent putter. And if his ownership's going to take a huge hit this week, kind of similar to Webb, man, we're getting him at a discounted price and discounted ownership. So there's some interesting plays. I know you like Emiliano Grillo down there at 7K. I know he's a guy you're on this week. As we move down into the sixes and move below Grillo there at 7K, who's sticking out to you kind of as a discount play this week?
I'm going to just kind of nudge my way into the sevens and say Jason Day at 7 flat, especially after the WD last week. He was playing really good golf. Shout out to Teal Sports. I mean, I think Jason Day is a very good GPP play. I think he's got immense upside. His iron play has been really trending in the right direction until he withdrew. I don't know why he would, unless he was like playing on a perfectly, his back was all jacked up, but he was playing really well. I don't know what the deal was, but he withdrew. He was playing really good golf. I'm going to go back. He heard about this.
He heard about this Aussie live thing, and he thought he was in there.
I know, man. Those, Cam Smith gave me a chance to forgive Aussies for all the indiscrepancies across the multiple sports that they've unjust South Africans in, but it seems like we're going backwards in that department now. But I love Jason Day. I love his upside. I love all that nonsense. And then Mark Hubbard. Mark Hubbard's a nice guy I really like. He is accurate. He's a good iron player. He's a good putter. And he avoids bogeys in a big way. He's got a decent course history here. $6,900. Love Mark Hubbard. And then we got Aaron Rye is another guy I mentioned earlier today. He's also just doing everything very steadily. He's also $6,800. Love that. And then my little sneaky, if you grab him at the right exact time, it's Troy Merritt. And he's entering the week after the last 12 rounds as the 5th best approach player in his field. And then not just that he's the best approach player over the last 12 rounds, like tied 5th, he's also extremely accurate off the tee. And he's also a very good putter on Bermuda. He's also a very good putter in general, which gives me all the confidence in the world that if history of the last 12 rounds repeats itself, we are looking at a Troy Merritt that is going to be $6,700, less than 5% owned, and just cooking with gas. And I'm going to get really aggressive on him this week. I think I'm going to put him in a lot of lineups. I mean, if I was a Joe Nicely, I would say he's going to be part of my core 4.
Okay.
I'm a very aggressive player when it comes to GP. Please, I'm okay losing all my money in 1 week if it means I'm going to win it all. But I like Troy Merritt a lot this week.
Yeah, I'm with you on most of the guys you mentioned, actually, Byron. Troy Merritt's very interesting. Aaron Rye, also very interesting. I'll throw out a couple more names. My favorites down here. I'm just an Alex Smalley guy. I was all in last week. I think this is a nice fit as well. Tom Hoagie has had a tremendous year, but he's kind of hit that wall like we were talking about with Mito Pereira, but looked really good in his last start. And if we start diving into kind of season-long stuff, Hoagie's up there, with amongst the best ball strikers on tour this year.
Yeah.
So if he's kind of refound that form that we saw earlier in the year, I really like him at $6,800. I think there's a lot of upside there at that price. Ryan Palmer's got good course history. I think Trey Mullinax is a really sneaky play at 6,500. Is playing the best golf of perhaps his career, coming off that huge win a couple of weeks ago, and then played really well in the Open Championship. He's from Birmingham, Alabama. Went to the University of Alabama. He's very familiar with this area, with this type of golf, and has a T6 and a T18. In 2 prior starts at TPC Southwind. So a super talented guy who's kind of had some weird, funky things happen to him. Got hit in the head with a golf ball, derailed him there and kind of sent him back to the KFT.
Yeah.
What, Byron? I didn't hear you.
Was it Cam that hit him in the head?
I can't remember the exact.
Sorry.
That was Cam and Aaron Wise at the PGA at Southern Hills. Yeah, Mullinax, man, he got a really serious head injury from I think he was maybe playing in a pro-am a couple years ago. I mean, this was a talented kid at the University of Alabama. Caught a stray one, I'm pretty sure in a pro-am a few years ago. And kind of set him back, derailed his career a little bit. He had to go back to the KFT last year, and kind of working his way back. This is talent's never been the issue with Mullinax. He had that some question marks about his work ethic. So I mean, there's some things, but a talented guy who's playing really well and has played well on this golf course in the past. Just a guy I don't mind kind of going heavy on in GPPs at $6,500. I think they're viable plays all the way down. I mean, we're talking about the top 125 guys on the PGA Tour for the season. So this is one of those rare weeks when you can, even get down towards the bare minimum and have some, viable options. A Doug Gim, a James Hahn, we've seen play well. Pete Malnati's a guy familiar with the area that can get hot. So I mean, there are some options all the way down to the bottom of the salary scale. I don't know that you need to go there this week with all the excellent talent that's kind of in the mid, $7K and up range. There's not really a need to go stars and scrubs, but I certainly think you can. That's a pretty interesting line to take with roster construction this week. So there's some neat things you can do playing around with lineup builds this week for sure. But while we're down here in the 6K range, we kind of come to that point in the show, Byron. We do our darts and our hearts. So since we've been talking about these lower price plays, man, who is your dart throw of the week? I think I know who it is, but go ahead and give it to me.
What is the price range that I have to go underneath?
Yeah. On the dart, man, you can. It's a long shot, dark horse. There's no set price range, man.
I'm gonna go with Grillo.
You're our guest, so the floor is open.
Grillo.
Definitely qualifies as a dart throw.
Yep. And then I was gonna say runner up would be Troy Merritt. But
I was gonna guess you were gonna say Troy Merritt.
Yeah, I think Grillo is showing more for longer, and I know what he can do. Where Troy is just kind of like, I'm really picking right at a perfect time in his approach. But that's what I'm doing up at the bottom. And then if I were to pick a guy that's not Cameron Smith, that broke my heart today.
Yeah, let's talk about your heart. How broken is it?
It's very broken.
Can you still fit Cam Smith in there? Can we keep the streak alive on this show?
We've been banned. I was banned from doing this on this show. So I can't say Cam Smith. If I'm gonna go with my heart, especially with the world number 2 potentially leaving the PGA Tour, I want the PGA Tour's Braveheart to come out firing this week, and it's going to be Rory McIlroy. I know he's the obvious favorite, but he got did in by Cam at the Open, and I hope he just kicks his ass this year in Memphis at this event, and just continues to do it and just wins all 3 of them. Him or Scotty, I'll take it. Whatever.
Okay. I know you were pulling for Cam at the Open, but man, it really sucked that Rory didn't win that thing, and it sucks even more in hindsight now. So got Rory. Man, that one was tough. My dart. I like Mullinax if we're talking about a deep dive. Like him down there. Our boy Scotty Stallings I like. So a couple darts from me there. I'll toss both those guys out.
Who is your one dart?
One dart. All right, man. Let me see here. There's so many options this week. So many ways you can go.
A dot.
Ches Reavie, 7,100. Accurate off the tee. I like the course history. I like the price. Final round 66. Coming off a final round 66. I always like to catch these guys coming off a hot round. So I'm going Ches Reavie as my dart throw this week, Byron. My heart is telling me, let's go with all the way to the top. Let's go Scotty Scheffler. It's been a while. I think he kind of refines the putter this week on these Bermuda greens. Like his chances of getting another win. Like his chances of playing really well throughout the FedEx Cup playoffs. So my heart is leading me to Scotty Scheffler. That's my man. That's going to be your winner this week. Also really like Willie Z. But yeah, Scotty is my guy and Ches is my guy. Byron is going with Rory and Emiliano Grillo. So that's where we are this week. Check out Byron's Breaking 100 article. Check out his Back 9 Bets show. You can find that on Twitter. You can find Breaking 100 over at rotoballer.com, as well as all of our other great content. If you want to sign up for our premium package, use promo code TURN, TURN. We appreciate you guys checking us out so much. Like and retweet, try to share the show. We're going to try to keep this thing going for you throughout the fall. Hopefully AP and I can pull that marathon out with buddies like Byron hopping on and kind of helping us and giving us a break. We're gonna try to keep going through winter for y'all. We appreciate you watching, appreciate you listening. Give us a like on YouTube, subscribe over there, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you want to listen. You should be able to find us, and you can always follow us on Twitter. So we appreciate y'all for joining. Thanks, Byron. We'll see you again soon.
Yep.
Good luck this week, buddy.
You too, boss.
All right, bro.